and welcome to the Tuesday, March 19th Olympia City Council meeting. For the record, we have a quorum. Councilmember Jones is here, but he's not up here. Councilmember Jim Cooper is excused, and so is Mayor Cheryl Selby. I will first start off by going to announcements. We have Kelly Pierce-Brosseth, our Strategic Communications Director.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Again, always good to speak with you. I'm going to give you an update on our homeless response activities. First of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Smart Lot and mitigation site. With the removal of the Smart Lot encampment on March 5th, the mitigation site has seen an increase of around 20 individuals. There was some confusion in the community that there was not actually the number of spaces available at the mitigation site to accommodate the Smart Lot campers, as was communicated by city staff. There was also some concern expressed that Smart Lot campers would have to share tents at the mitigation site in order to be accommodated. And I wanted the council and the community to know that none of the people who moved to the Smart Lot had to share a tent. In fact, the overflow space that city staff made available for the removal was not actually needed to be used. And the Smart Lot remains fenced for the rest of the month, and it will go back to being a leased parking lot the first week of April. And a little bit about the Plum Street. The village is going well. Currently, the village now has about 27 residents. 17 of the 29 homes are occupied. Interviews for prospective residents are ongoing, and hopefully they're hopeful that the village will be full in a couple of weeks. And the villagers continue to be transitioning from the mitigation site, though they're still working with mitigation site residents to populate the village. We were hearing that members of the community were not clear on how residents for the Plum Street tiny house village were being placed, and we just want to talk a little bit about that. Unlike other models of tiny home villages in the community, the Plum Street village was never intended to be a long-term supportive housing option. For example, the village does not have the kind of medical resources to care for residents who are unable to take care of themselves physically. Plum Street was intended to be short-term interim housing where residents can stabilize and connect with services and set themselves up for their next longer-term intentional step. In designing Plum Street, the city worked with the surrounding neighbors and the businesses and made some commitments about how the village would be managed. Also, we've had the benefit of lessons learned by Lehigh, who is the subject matter expert on these kind of villages for the region. Staff work with the coordinated entry system in identifying potential residents, but the vulnerability index is only one criteria for determining the eligibility to be placed. Placement priority is given to people who are homeless in Olympia. Olympia residents had an expectation that the actions the city was taking was going to actually impact homelessness in Olympia. Priority is also given to couples. Those who join the village are expected to make the commitment to work with a case manager and to be part of the village community, and that includes things like shared management and cleanup responsibility of the village, signing a good neighbor agreement, and committing to certain behaviors. There have been people denied placement in the village, some because they needed more supportive services than the village was capable of offering them, and some because they weren't yet prepared to commit to the community responsibilities and to work with the services. But those who have been ready to find that steadiness, who are ready to connect with services and to be part of the village community, Plum Street has been really helping them take positive steps forward in their lives and giving them some tools for success. We're already hearing about some of the residents already landing jobs. And we'll make sure to share those stories with council as we get those. Wanted to talk a little bit about the 4th Avenue Bridge. and be open that and sometime in the future the city is going to have to address the encampment under the 4th Street Bridge. There are reports of a good deal of garbage getting into the water, concerns about compromising water quality, and the encampment and those activities are increasingly raising the concerns of the Department of Ecology, and we're hearing about that. So sometime down the line that is inevitably going to have to be addressed. I do want to also point out that the work, and I meant to show you this. Oh, the Plum Street Village. Nice picture of the Plum Street Village. I wanted to also let you guys know that the work we're doing around the mitigation site and Plum Street Village around homeless response is attracting attention. We're doing innovative, cutting-edge work. And on March 12th, the city staff and council members actually hosted tours of the mitigation site in the Plum Street Village for aides of Senators Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell's offices, as well as aides from Representative Denny Heck and Derek Kilmer's office. I would also, as always, like to remind people that they can stay up to date on the updates around our homeless activities by subscribing to our Homeless Ease newsletter. The address is right there. And finally, I'd like to give a little tease and a little introduction to a new online tool we've been working on for a couple of online engagement tool we've been working on for several months. Welcome to Engage Olympia. We'll be piloting Engage Olympia with a limited number of projects, 4 of them in 2019. 2 of those are going to be around homelessness. One around our emergency response, one around our long-term response. You're going to be hearing more about this next week when Stacey Ray comes before you to talk about the response. We think that Engage Olympia, it's one tool. We have a lot of tools around engagement for the city, and this is just one more to add to the toolbox. And we think this one helps us check some of the boxes around community engagement that the council noted at the retreat this year in January. Some of the things that I'll point out, you guys wanted us to be proactive. You wanted us to meet people where they were. Engage Olympia will allow us to do that. You wanted us to find ways to invite the public into the creation process, and it allows us to do that. And also find ways to allow our residents to talk to each other, and it'll allow us to do that. So we're very excited. It will go live this week, and so we wanted you to know about it because we're going to be talking about it on our social media, and we'll certainly be telling you more about it soon.
Thank you very much, Kelly. And with that, I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, we have an agenda. And now we will move to item 2A, which is special recognition for Arbor Day. I'm going to ask my council colleague, Renata Rollins, to read an Arbor Day proclamation, and then we will go ahead and have an update from staff.
All right. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed annually in Olympia, and whereas trees provide a multitude of environmental benefits, such as cleaning the air we breathe, reducing soil erosion, cooling the air, shading our streams, and providing wildlife habitat. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, an identifying characteristic of our Pacific Northwest community, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business interests, and beautify our neighborhoods, and whereas planting trees is a source of joy and a living legacy, and whereas Olympia, Washington has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation for the 26th year, now therefore be it resolved that the Olympia City Council does hereby proclaim March 23rd, 2019 as Arbor Day, and urge all community to support efforts to care for our trees and forested areas and to participate in supporting a healthy community tree canopy.
Thank you, council members and Mayor Pro Tem Bateman, for having us here tonight to tell you a little bit about our Arbor Day celebrations. I'm Shelley Bentley. I'm the urban forester for the city of Olympia, and I manage the forestry program. This is the time of year we come together to share our festivities for Arbor Day. This year, it will be on Saturday, and we'll be at Percival Landing. And in a minute, Jesse will explain to you some of our events that we'll be having there. This is our 5th year coming together with Community Planning and Development, Public Works, and our Parks Department to celebrate the day. As is appropriate, we all take care of our urban forests together. We will also recognize our 32nd recipient who will be receiving our Friends of the Trees Award down at Percival Landing. So with that, I'd like Jesse to go through our events for the day.
Thanks, Shelley. So like we said, on this Saturday at 10 a.m., we're having an event at Percival Landing Park. We have a few things that are happening all day and then a series of events. All day we're going to be having a giveaway of native Western Washington trees and shrubs. We've got about 10 different species, total of 200 plants that we're giving away to folks that come down that they can plant in their yards or where they would like. And we've also got seed packets of native wildflowers that people can plant for pollinator plantings in their yards, a couple species of lupin and yarrow, pearly everlasting. There's a self-guided tour of the native shoreline plants along Percival Landing and in the park there that we have set up that's happening all day. At 10 a.m., we're going to have a representative from Department of Natural Resources, Urban and Community Forestry, talking about proper tree pruning. Starting around 11, we'll have some music by the Artesian Rumble Orchestra for about an hour. There will be another rereading of the proclamation and the presentation of the Friends of Trees Award at 12:30. At 1, a new shade tree will be planted adjacent to the playground down at Percival Landing to benefit the community for many years to come. And then at 1:30, the ex-urban forester Joe Roush is going to give a tour of downtown street trees of Olympia, and they'll leave from Percival Landing. So those are the events that we have planned for Arbor Day.
Thank you, Jesse.
Welcome to come.
And Mayor Selby and I are happy to attend. Mayor Selby will be reading the proclamation again, and I will be emceeing the event. I'm looking forward to seeing all of those trees and shrubs that you're talking about. All right, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you this Saturday. Happy Arbor Day.
Great. Thank you, guys.
All right, and with that, we will move to public comment. During this portion of the meeting, citizens may address the City Council regarding items related to city business, including items on the agenda. In order for the City Council to maintain impartiality and the appearance of fairness in upcoming matters and to comply with the public disclosure law for political campaigns, speakers will not be permitted to make public comments before the Council on these areas. On agenda items which the City Council either held a public hearing in the last 45 days or will hold a public hearing within the next 45 days, where the public testimony may implicate a matter on which the City Council will be required to act in quasi-judicial capacity, or whether the speaker promotes or opposes a candidate for public office or a ballot measure. This is an election year, so please keep that in mind. Individuals will have 3 minutes or less. There's a countdown clock on your left. And with that, I will call Jim Reeves up to the podium.
Yes, my name is Jim Reeves, also known as Moses, and I'd like to talk about the threats, major threats as posed to public safety here in Washington State in the city of Olympia. Scientists say that we're due for a very large earthquake, maybe as big as 9.2 magnitude on the west coast here, Washington State. And some people say that, or think that in a big earthquake that large, that we might have Mount Rainier erupt. So we've got a double threat here, at least through the earthquake as well as the volcano erupting. That threatens the public safety. There are a number of people or groups that are predicting a large earthquake out here on the West Coast besides American scientists. The Russians recently gave a warning to the federal government of the United States that they, due to the manifestations of magnetic waves in the upper atmosphere, which they monitor, they can claim they can use to predict earthquakes. And they're predicting a large earthquake to hit the west coast of the United States this year. Also, they, due to earthquakes recently in the Western Pacific, they think that the whole Pacific plate is about ready to make a major readjustment. And this is going to result in a very large earthquake to the west coast of the United States. Okay, so I think that the Russians are supposed to be the foremost experts in the use of magnetic waves to predict earthquakes. And so we maybe ought to listen to them. I think they're onto something. And of course, there's other predictors of earthquakes here on the west coast of the United States. I mentioned in the past Elvis Presley, the way he died and all, he seemed to be pointing towards a large earthquake in Washington State in the year 2019. And I think that Elvis Presley was more than just a singer. I think we can interpret his name, Elvis, as the El meaning the name of God, and the VIS pointing to the word vision, God's vision by interpretation. I think that vision is the big earthquake on the west coast of the United States. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Cece Coates, followed by John Pettit.
Hello, Olympia City Council and my fellow citizens. I'm C.C. Coates. Before becoming disabled, I was an accomplished union carpenter and a subsistence farmer out Johnson Point. It took me 12 years to get on Social Security, and I hate to tell you all, but we don't have housing for disabled people. There's no place really to go. I got a raise to $770 a month. Housing Authority, the least expensive single bedroom that they can find, is $600 a month. That doesn't add up. We continue to build luxury condos and completely ignore the most needy. I'd like to speak to a public health and safety emergency, one that's a little more pressing. Without actual sanitation facilities, like bathrooms, so that people don't have to urinate and defecate upon the streets, and limited hand washing, it's going to lead to public health emergencies. It has other places. Medieval diseases like typhoid and cholera are ravaging our poor. And these diseases don't just stay with the poor. Hepatitis A doesn't stay with the poor. If we don't actually address these issues, we are going to have disease outbreaks in America, and here too. Okay, the best way to get people hygiene is to get them housing. The few hygiene centers that we have access to are overwhelmed. I'm lucky if I can wash my hands and use a real bathroom once, maybe twice a day. I have to use a urinal pot. This is third world conditions in what's supposed to be the most powerful and glorious nation on the planet. What is wrong with us? How did we get here? How is the city of Olympia complicit in this crime against humanity? You say you don't want eyesores and garbage, but you keep removing public garbage cans. 6 of my favorite garbage cans have disappeared. It makes it even harder for me to deal with my trash. I don't just dump it on the street. Neither do I urinate upon the street. But as far as safety goes, I'm no more safe this year than I was the last 4 years that I've been homeless. Now that it's summer, I have to have my van open all the time. That makes it a very serious threat to my safety to have somebody come along and assault me, which has happened multiple times. We need to start working on this housing for disabled people. Seriously.
Thank you. Next, we have John Pettit.
Good evening, council members. I'm John Pettit. I live in Olympia, and I plan on building a new estate on a nice 5-acre chunk of property in Olympia. One of the things which I appreciate is you taking note of Arbor Day. Arbor Day is a day to care about the environment. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see, but there are certain areas that we've had a lot of photos posted lately, like Percival Creek, where we have some serious ecology problems. A lot of garbage put into the creek, and it has to do with a combination of homeless, but it has a lot to do with the people that choose to live a lifestyle that perhaps is not beneficial, and they don't choose to be subject to being arrested for drug use or such. One of the things I was really hopeful for, and particularly with your city council here, is Como News recently put on a documentary, Seattle is Dead. The documentary could have easily been Olympia is Dead. It had to do a lot about what the real issues are, that is the problem issues with the homeless. This isn't about the homeless that are just hard on their luck. But when you watch this video, they brought it all in, more facts, documented facts. So there's documentation to it. Nobody likes to think that there's a problem. We would prefer to think, oh, there's no problem. People are just doing what they want to do. But there's a lot of people out there that need some serious help with addiction issues. They will not get the addiction issues resolved if nobody draws a line and says, this doesn't happen here. If you want to be here, which is the most beautiful place in the world, you're going to have to live to a certain way, and perhaps we can make you even have a better life if we can help you get cleaned up. So I would encourage you, watch the video. Como, put it on. Seattle is Dead. Watch it. Think of it in terms of Olympia is dead. And let's take some action to continue the good work that you did in doing some of the cleanup. I know it's hard to watch some of these people go through difficulties. But if you're a parent, you know that you've watched your kids go through some difficulties sometimes. It's not always easy to watch the cleanup process occur. But I am pleased, and I appreciate the last time I made a comment, the support of the council, letting me have an opportunity to speak my voice, and hopefully we'll see progress on the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any comments from the council in regarding public comment? I will respond. Thank you for the comments regarding the recent TV faux documentary, Seattle is Dying. I did have a chance to watch that today, and I will say that I was a little disturbed by the broad oversimplification of a really complex societal challenge of homelessness and addiction in the TV show. They made broad assumptions and stereotypes, including that all individuals that are homeless are addicted to drugs, which simply is not true, and relied on anecdotal information versus actual facts and unbiased data. It highlighted in the state of Rhode Island, they have a very innovative program there where they provide medication-assisted treatment to individuals that are in state prison. And they have the choice of 3 medication-assisted treatment options when they get incarcerated if they're addicted to opiates, which is a very progressive, medically evidence-based practice. And when they exit from the prison system, they actually contract Rhode Island, Providence, with a nonprofit that provides case management, counseling, behavioral health services, including the continuation of those medications, and they've seen a 65% decrease in the rate of mortality of those exiting the criminal justice system, which is huge. I will say that Rhode Island is a much smaller state, and we are dealing with a broken behavioral health system in the state of Washington. Right now, if you're on Medicaid, it's going to take you 3 months to get into an inpatient treatment facility. In our Washington state prisons, you cannot get access to medication-assisted treatment. Everyone should have access, if they need and want medication-assisted treatment, without a doubt. To make broad stereotypes about individuals that are homeless, every single one of them being addicted, is just simply inaccurate. But I appreciate the sentiment. To item 4, our consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Do I have any questions, comments, or polls?
I just wanted to, if I may, to
Councilmember Gilman.
Thank you. On item 4C, which is authorizing an interlocal agreement for the Martin Way Corridor Study. This is a significant collaboration between Thurston Regional Planning, ourselves, and the City of Olympia, and Thurston County, actually, for Martin Way, which passes through Olympia, some unincorporated county, and the City of Lacey, all three. And it's an opportunity to extend some of the thinking we've had in our transportation master planning about multimodal transportation, about factoring transit and biking and walking right into the street design. And also could be a really important tool in planning a light version of bus rapid transit, like you see in larger cities, of sort of express buses with their own place to pull off the main drag. So I'm really pleased that we're throwing in with the other jurisdictions and working regionally to improve that corridor.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilman. Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, I want to thank you for raising this item. I also had some comments on it. The scope of work for that study includes safety, access, connectivity, and redevelopment feasibility, which is exciting. It's a comprehensive look at one of the major corridors in Thurston County, and certainly in our urban area. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to get this work done, so let's get started, and I'm excited that we're taking action on it tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones. Any other comments? I have one. I'd just like to comment on item 4E, which is the approval of a resolution accepting a Transportation Improvement Board grant for the Franklin Street Improvement Projects. We received $400,000 from the Washington State Transportation Improvement Board fuel tax grant funds for pedestrian crossing improvements at State and 4th Avenue, and I just want to thank staff for creating and submitting that grant application. It's a really awesome way to contribute towards that overall price tag for that project. Are there any other comments or polls? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we can move on to item 6A. We have the approval of a resolution adopting the Olympia Sea Level Rise Response Plan, and I believe we have Andy Hobb that will be coming up. And I'd just like to take the liberty of noting that Andy has been with the city for 29 years, and he will be leaving us shortly. His retirement party is coming up soon, and I hope that we can all attend to thank him for his years of dedicated service to the city of Olympia. Thank you for being here tonight, Andy.
Thank you. And thank you for a tremendous 29 years. I will miss you all. It's been very, very healthy and very good. I'm Andy Hobb with Olympia's Public Works Department. Eric Christensen is joining me tonight. We are here this evening with a recommendation from city staff as well as the city's Utility Advisory Committee to adopt the finalized version of the sea level rise plan for Olympia, and then also to initiate implementation of that plan at a modest level. The plan has been developed over the last 2 years, though it really builds upon 10 or 15 years of information accumulation and evaluation that documents the threat of flooding and sea rise to our downtown. We've known for a very long time that our downtown is quite susceptible to flooding. So, the plan's goal is straightforward. We seek to protect our downtown from flooding, both in the near term and the long term. The real challenges with the plan stem from our commitment early on to bring our community an actionable plan, a plan that provided the specific actions as best we could to protect our downtown, to look at implementation schedules, implementation dynamics and monitoring, and so forth. We feel we've done that, and the plan indeed does include a fairly robust approach to implementation. You have all seen this graph before. Just very quickly, it indicates that we are planning for up to 68 inches of sea rise by the end of this century. Recent research has also started assigning probabilities to different levels of sea rise, and this is new information for our community. We're just sharing it tonight. I think in the years to come, with further refinements and further thought about the probabilities, it will very much help our decision-making process on how we respond. Reading this table is straightforward. It suggests, say, for 2.1 feet of sea rise, there's an 83% probability that that could be exceeded. So a high likelihood, relatively, that we would exceed 2 feet. As you move on down, sea rise projections increase, but the probability decreases. We've included our 5.7 feet, or 68 inches, in here. That has a probability of exceedance of somewhere less than 1%. That's a pretty traditional approach to flood management. It is conservative, but it's traditional, and that's the approach we've used. We've heard from the public, and the research does include higher projections. I've listed some of those here. 9 feet, 0.1%, 10 feet, really unknown, maybe 0.1%. These numbers we know will continue to evolve in the years to come. We'll keep track of them, and we'll report back to the community. The plan includes 4 types of strategies for responding to the flooding risks. We're prepared to start work, once again, at a modest level on all 4 of these types of strategies. Our public outreach has been extensive, and we feel well received. I'm confident that Olympia supports the plan. May have different interpretations of the science and so forth. That's perfectly valid, but in general supports the plan, and the knowledge in our community about the risks of climate change and sea rise has increased along the way. Our State Environmental Policy Act review, our formal review process, is complete. We received 1 response from the Squaxin Island tribe. It was a gracious reminder to keep in mind that in the years to come, when we do start construction along the shoreline, there is the potential to find cultural resources, and we need to take the steps appropriate to protect them. We've also had several other comments, as well as several dozen comments previously. They really fall into the areas listed here, suggesting that maybe our projections aren't quite right. There have been numerous comments and recommendations to keep in mind the potential to increase public access along the shoreline as we modify the shoreline. As an aside, we have recently met with the Squaxin Island Tribe Natural Resource staff. They too are working on climate change and sea rise. They're doing some work that is of interest to us and vice versa. So that relationship, I'm sure, will build in the years to come. So this evening's recommendation, we ask you to adopt the plan and to consider next steps for implementing it. I have included a one-page handout at your desks. Yes. That is a fairly simplistic outline of the things we feel we should and can do in the next 2 years.
Thank you, Andy. Do I have questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Jones.
So I'm really pleased to be at this point this evening. We've been working on this for a long time. Andy, you said 2 years, but the city's involvement with trying to prepare for sea level rise really goes back decades. So,
Yes.
and I appreciate your work on that, and I'm glad to be here now at this point. I also want to acknowledge the partnership with Port of Olympia and with the Clean Water Alliance in getting to this point, and certainly the Utility Advisory Committee and the Squaxin Island Tribe, the citizens and the staff. It really has been a major undertaking. I want to stress from my perspective that this plan, as important as it is really foundational. But what that means is that there's ongoing work. It sets the base, and we go from here, going forward, monitoring our situation and adapting with new information as it becomes available. And you made reference to that in your comments this evening. But conditions most likely will change as we move forward. But we do have good information about risks and the impacts of progressively higher elevations of sea level rise. We can understand where those physical threats are and what operational responses may be required. The question is, we're not sure when we need to take those actions, and so it's a phased response. So with the adoption of this plan, we need to move forward with both policy and financing adjustments that get us in a position to start making actual tangible improvements on the ground so that we're ready as sea level rise continues to show up in our downtown. At first, what we need to do, I think, is relatively modest in the short term, in the next few years, but we will see some changes in our stormwater systems and maybe some grading in Heritage Park as a part of this plan, and our response will need to adapt as we move forward with more substantial barriers. So again, Andy, I want to thank you for your work on this, and I'm just very pleased to be at this point this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones. Andy, you want to respond?
Just one comment. I wanted to let you know that the Lot Clean Water Alliance has passed a resolution accepting or adopting the plan, and we'll be incorporating it into their other programs. Similarly, the Port expects to do the same next month.
Thank you for noting that. Do I have, I keep turning myself off. Councilmember Gilman.
Thank you. I appreciate the decades of work as well as this recent process to get us here and bringing along Lot and the Port. I think that's really significant. For me, I'm very much in support of approving this plan to put in place the governance, the financial, sort of what's the structure for how we continue to collaborate on these decisions. As one person, I'm going to continue to have a different understanding about what the risks and the physical threats are, and have primary importance for me is a functioning estuary and bay with as healthy of an ecosystem as we can muster, and as resilient and flexible of responses as we can put into place, because the science may evolve for sure. So thank you for your work, and I look forward to us passing this.
Thank you, and thank you for your comment about the health of that estuary, which is something we're all interested in seeing. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Parsley.
In general, I'm very happy with it. As a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to vote on it at Lot Board just last week. One of the things that impresses me with this plan is its adaptability and ability to change, because it's recognized right from the very beginning that we're looking at something we're not sure how it's going to unfold, and the plan allows for us to adapt and adjust. So I just want to give a shout out to that part of the plan, that it's not a roadmap. It's more of a, this is where we start on our journey, and we will take the journey where it's going to lead us.
Thank you, Councilmember Parsley. Any other comments? I'm willing to accept a motion.
I move adoption.
Second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. There's one other order of business related to this motion, which is the request for us to appoint members of this council to an oversight committee to move forward with the implementation of this plan. It's my understanding that Councilmember Nathaniel Jones and Councilmember Lisa Parsley are both interested in being appointed to that committee. So I would entertain a motion to appoint both Councilmembers Jones and Parsley. It's been moved. Is there a second? All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. You have your 2 members for your committee. Thank you so much. And we will see you soon, Andy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. With that, I'm going to move to council reports. And I will go ahead and start. I just have one item to report. 2 weeks ago, Saturday, Keith Staley and I attended the Unitarian Universalist congregation on the west side of Olympia, where we were there with members of Lehigh, John Brown, and Jovita, and we talked with them about the implementation possibilities for a tiny house village of to be determined size on their property, and that is something that they are continuing to consider and investigate. So again, that's the second faith-based organization in a month that I've gone to and talked to, and I'm really, really inspired by their interest in taking that on. They have not yet determined whether they're going to do that, but even having these conversations is a huge success. And with that, I will start on my right, Councilmember Parsley.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have 3 things to report. The first is I attended the Parking Business Improvement Area meeting on March 6th, and basically the board started to delve into their ordinance and bylaws, which are going to be updated this year. Also talked about event sponsorship and got an update on the homelessness response. They also launched their survey, which they do quarterly or bi-yearly, and I'll be looking forward to those results because I've touted their ability to get a high number of respondents from their, I guess, taxing district. They can get upwards of 42% of the businesses answering survey questions, which is huge because most surveys at most get 25%. And they can give us a real temperature of the businesses downtown. Then I participated in a day-long executive director interview process for the Joint Animal Services Committee. We have 3 outstanding candidates at this point. We're in the last stages where the city staff of Lacey will be going through background checks and reference checks. We hope to have an announcement of who this new director will be within the month. And finally, I attended LOT, the Clean Water Alliance, and we went over our agenda. And we entertained such discussions as an early opening on what the cost of services will be, including how that may impact utilities in the future. And we hope to have this discussion concluded in the next year to 18 months because it will require a changing of the interlocal agreement between the parties involved. And then lastly, as mentioned, we approved the sea level rise plan.
Any questions for Councilmember Parsley? All right, Councilmember Gilman.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Bateman. So I was really proud to attend the recognition event last Tuesday, the 12th at noontime for staff working on the homelessness response. And I'd be ever so grateful if one of my colleagues with more voice might tell a little bit about that event. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilman. So last Tuesday, City Council hosted a pizza and ice cream appreciation party for our house cat, our internal response of staff to addressing homelessness, which for those of the viewing audience and the public that don't know, there's been considerable reorganization within the city and moving different parts to address this emergent public health crisis. And so we took the opportunity as a council to really sit down with and talk with and appreciate and thank the staff that have done a significant amount of work in this last year. For the pace of government, we have been moving at lightning speed in recognition of the challenges and the threat to public safety and public health that homelessness presents. And they've done just incredible work. So we were there to do that, and I was really happy that we had ice cream too. All right, Councilmember Jones.
Thank you very much. Just a few things to report on. First, yesterday's meeting of Thurston Thrives Coordinating Council, we received a report about the upcoming community health assessment, which is sponsored by Thurston County. The coordinating council agreed to participate in a very tangible way in that process. This community health assessment is done about every 5 years, and the focus this time is on health equity issues. I also wanted to report on the Thurston Regional Planning Council. I participated in interviews for the consultant associated with the Regional Climate Mitigation Plan. Some really excellent talent in that interview process. At this point, we've not finalized selection, but it continues with confirmation of the approach, the work program, and the deliverables and so forth. And then I just want to talk about last night's event at the Washington Center. It was an inspiring collection of voices of young and old calling out on the need for further progress on social justice in our community and in our country. The event was led by students from Olympia High School with involvement from River Ridge High School and numerous other local organizations. And the City of Olympia helped sponsor the event. I was honored to be able to hear the presentation by Dolores Huerta, who was a principal co-founder of the United Farm Workers Movement and who continues to this day to fight for the rights of the underprivileged and disenfranchised people with great energy and moral authority. It was a great evening, and I appreciate the work of those who organized the event. I was very glad to be there. That's my report.
Thank you for that summary, Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Rollins.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I do have a few items to report. First of all, I guess the big one for our internal government operations, general government had 2 kind of marathon-length evenings of interviewing candidates for our city boards and commissions that are made up of volunteers in the community. We had so many great applicants, and we will be bringing those recommendations to the full council on next week's agenda. So I look forward to sharing a little bit more about some of the details at that point, but I just wanted to thank not only Kelly, who really facilitated that process for us, but also the individual boards and commissions who this year had the role of going through the applications and deciding who to interview. So doing that initial screening for us was really helpful and interesting to see how they all kind of took a different approach to that process. So more next week. So going back 2 weeks ago, I attended Intercity Transit Authority meeting, and it was mainly a few updates. We heard an update from the van pool program, which I didn't know is the largest public van pool program in the United States. That was interesting. Takes 1,000 cars off of I-5 every day. They got a $250,000 grant from the Department of Transportation to do outreach to employees in the region who do not work for an employer with a commute trip reduction program. So trying to get out to beyond the low-hanging fruit, I suppose, and get more of the cars off the road for folks leaving Thurston County or coming here to work from outside of the county. The Olympia Transit Center project is going pretty well. It's a couple weeks behind related to snow, but the foundation's all complete, and I believe the building is scheduled to start going up tomorrow, and it's supposed to be complete in November. Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay. Dang, I haven't been by today. And then, but it's completely operational in the meantime. And then the Pattison facility, they're wrapping up the master planning process for the improvements up there. Phase 2 is going to be completed in August 2019. If I understood correctly, that includes the right-of-way improvements, so the traffic lights at Pattison and Martin Way. So that's intercity transit. I attended the TCOM 911 board meeting last week as well. I'm a new member to that board. The main discussion item for our annual meeting there was funding for the radio system that needs updates. And we did not get into the governor's budget, so the current plan and hope is that the state legislature will grant emergency communications operations organizations the ability to go to voters and ask for a raise in sales and use tax to go up to a total of 0.2%. So that has gotten through the Senate. It has a House Finance Committee hearing next week. And if they're able to get that authority and if they put that to voters and voters approve, that would be able to allow them to finance the purchase of the radios. So that's what we know there. And finally, I attended the Housing Action Team meeting last week as well, over at the Public Health Building. And they are working on developing a charter for themselves. Actually, Crosby Carter, the Thurston Thrives executive director, is developing that charter with input. And that's pretty much it's not a legal charter, she explained, but it's to just come up with some basic agreements of what the purpose of that group is and who has voting rights, who can become a member and a voting member in that group. And then they discussed the county 5-year plan updates, which Keely Marinu over at the county is currently hosting conversations with different jurisdictions, and those updates are due to the state in December 2019. And that's it.
That was a marathon. Thank you, Councilmember Rollins. And I will move to City Manager's report. Assistant City Manager Jay Burney.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Bateman. I have 2 items to report. First item, I also attended the Stay Woke rally last night at the Washington Center, and I just wanted to add my comment that when you look at the energy of the youth that were in that room last night, we are in good hands moving forward. I'm just blown away by what they're able to pull together and put together in our community, and they did it with grace, and I'm just really proud of what they've done. The second item is we've been coordinating with the Squaxin Island Tribe to arrange our annual dinner meeting of the City Council and the Tribal Council. We have landed on a date that works best for the Squaxin Island Tribe. They would like to host you out there. The date we have is April 9th. It is a Tuesday night. We have a very light agenda that night and things that easily can be moved around. And so I would propose to you, if you're up for it, for April 9th to be our annual meeting with the Squaxin Island Tribe. And they also would like to start at 5 p.m. So I'd like any feedback from you if that's too early a start as well.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Jay Burney. Did you want us to get back to you on that, or are you seeking input right now?
I'm seeking input right now if you could give it.
Okay. Raise your hand if that works for you. You got it? Great.
I got it.
But you're going to confirm with Councilmember Cooper and Mayor Selby to make sure that they can attend too.
We sure will.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. If there is nothing else before the Olympia City Council, we are adjourned.